online. Do they see him? Or?
I think so, yeah, there's like a little square pops up. Well, welcome everybody, and to a rather cold Tuesday evening for the Woodley Town Council's Leisure Services Committee. The meeting is being recorded and is being live streamed and will be stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. And by virtue of attending the meeting, you are consenting to having your image and audio recorded for that purpose. So if you do not wish for your image and audio to be recorded, then please do not stay for this meeting. For those in attendance, we're not expecting a fire drill, so if you hear the fire alarm, please head to the nearest exit and congregate at the fire assembly point to the open centre in front of Woodley. I will take item 1 on the agenda, receive apologies. Kevin.
Yeah, we've had apologies from councillors Bragg and Hoskins. We also have Councillor Heath attending virtually and Councillor Al-Sanjari who suggested she would attend.
She is here as well.
She is here.
She's here, so both of them.
Welcome to both. I will then take item 2 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Does anybody have a declaration of interest as regards the agenda for this evening? Okay, I can assume that silence is acceptance. Then we will move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of August. And those minutes were provided at the last full council agenda on the 11th of October. I would like to propose that we approve those minutes and with a show of hands, please. So if I can have a show of hands. All those against? Those abstaining? Those minutes have been adopted. Thank you very much. I'll sign those up, please. I will take item 4 on the agenda, which is secretary control, and the report on page 5. Kevin, do you wish to make any observations?
Yeah, just a couple of things to point out. Perhaps things are the right way round, as usual, which is very good, with expenditure under where we might expect in the year and income over. Perhaps a couple of things just to note more on the income side of things where there are excuse me, a couple of items which are significantly higher. So sorry, this is page 6. Woodford Park, additional benches and memorial trees. We've had quite a lot of interest in new memorial trees and benches in the park, which have been really good. So that's a popular this year, much more so than has been previously. And also to note, income at the halls is doing really well, particularly Coronation Hall, which is pretty chocker at the moment, which is just great news, really, after less than great year.
Absolutely. Thank you. Does any member wish to ask any questions? Alex, I see your hand up. Please unmute. And,
thank you. Can I ask on grounds maintenance expenses? They're particularly high. I mean, if you extrapolate to the end of the year, it comes out about 70,000. Is there a particular reason why there's that much inflation on that particular item?
What I would say is we are experiencing increased costs across the board on a lot of things, and some of those things are items that will be purchased earlier in the year for the rest of the year, so they're not necessarily spread through the year, if that makes sense, in terms of fertilizers and grass seeds, things like that.
Fine, okay. And I did mention last time, are we going to come up with a revised estimate for the year end?
We are working on revised estimates at the moment, yeah.
Right,
I can't say when we can provide that, unfortunately. No.
Right. Thank you.
Before you end. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you. On page 6, under income grounds maintenance, it talks about the Bournemouth open space grass cutting higher than anticipated. I presume that's the cost rather than the grass. But what I wanted to ask was, this is what we're getting from Early Town Council for their share in that maintenance. I've used my mower very little this year because of the drought, and I just wonder why that was higher than anticipated, if ever.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
That's a really good question.
It is.
Yes. You're right. Are there any other questions? In that case, I will move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the Woodford Park Leisure Centre Sports and Development Activities on page 7. I can hand that over to you, Mark. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. So just to start off, you can see there, I've put in 2 charts into this report this time, just following some questions that we had at the last committee meeting. I thought it was probably the easiest way to get the information that the committee was interested in. I'm sorry, I can't remember which councillors asked these questions, but they're fairly self-explanatory. The first chart you can see there is the reasons people cancelling the membership. Now, we tried to get in contact with every single member that wanted to cancel between the 1st of September and the 31st of October. And as you can see, those are the reasons we were given. A lot of people weren't contactable. I put them in the none given column just as to get them out of the way. And you can see there it's kind of an even spread, and not using the membership came out on top. A lot of those reasons are kind of unavoidable for us, really, in terms of you going to university. It's very common this time of year. That's going to be one of the reasons for people leaving. I think that kind of tied into a little bit as well, as into moving away from the area for the same reason. The only one that really I was interested in particularly was the moving to another gym for obvious reasons. Now, there's obviously a little bit more information that goes into that. I have got the information written down here, but I haven't put it into the chart. Out of those 6 people, one of those people mentioned the price. 2 people left because of the electrical work. So during the time where we were closed, they moved to another gym and basically come back afterwards. 2 of those people were offered gym membership as part of their new job, so kind of got it for free or severely reduced cost. And one person, this is probably the one that's most interesting to me, left because was able to join with them on the membership at another facility. Now, because our gym's unmanned, we've historically not allowed under 16s to be members there, simply because they haven't got the supervision. However, I have started to kind of do a little bit of research into family memberships and how that might work if a parent attends with an under 16. There's a couple of questions there relating to insurance and things like that that I have to look into a bit more, but that was probably the main one that actually was quite of interest to me. Hopefully that chart makes a lot of sense. The second one, really, I did this since the gym was open. I thought it was the easiest way to show the impact that COVID had on our membership income. You can see that it was a pretty steady increase right up until the point where we were forced into a lockdown. And you can see where we came out, went back in again, and got bounced around a little bit. As you can see, we've been kind of on a slow and steady increase since then. The little dip you can see there that comes kind of around August is where people suspended from the electrical works. So the income for the month would have been reduced at that period. And hopefully we can continue to kind of gradually rise that back to where we were pre-COVID, although of course that will take some doing. Is there any questions about either of those 2?
I see you've lost, well, over about 15 members that you've lost.
Yeah, just under 6, I think, yeah.
How many have you actually recruited since then?
During this period, about the same amount, actually. It stayed pretty much the same. September is one of the months where we do tend to lose a lot of people. It's one of the months where a lot of people's personal circumstances change. People again go on to higher education, things like that. And of course, then when we get to January, that tends to increase again. And it does kind of fluctuate. But yeah, September is quite a common time for people.
Great. So we've actually sort of kept stable.
Yeah, I was quite surprised with that, actually. When we were closing in August, I thought we might lose more because of the electrical work, because it was about 5 weeks in the end where we were impacted severely, I would say. But yeah, about the same. It's really similar. Yeah.
Congratulations, that's great.
Councillor Salt, yes.
How many members do we have?
The reason I chose to do income rather than number of members is because that number is quite difficult to accurately give you, simply because people who are in a cancellation period are working their notice, and people who have recently joined haven't necessarily set up a direct debit. I was estimating, I would say about 550. It would be within
really good. There must be a limit to the amount of members we could take on and still be able to guarantee everybody a fantastic experience.
100%. So when we were right at the peak before COVID, and one of the problems I was having was that we were pretty much at maximum capacity for our exercise classes. The gym was very busy. People were struggling to get on equipment, and we were actually considering capping the membership at 750, which is what that number was when it was at its peak.
Okay. Councillor Nardo, I can see your hand up. Did you want to ask?
Yes, thank you. Just thinking about encouraging more people to use the gym. Can I just say, I still think it's a jewel in the crown for Woodley. I think we are the only council-funded leisure centre in not just the area, but including Reading. Am I right in that? Yeah, I think it's a facility that we just really mustn't lose. I'm all for council-funded, council-maintained, council-owned leisure services. Really important, as you know, we know, especially during COVID, we realised how important these services are for people. So, in kind of my desire to make sure that we don't ever lose this, is it possible to kind of? I'm just kind of thinking. With the networks that we already have, so allotment tiers, could we not sort of write to them and say, because they already use Woodley Town Services, they pay into the allotments, could they not get the off-peak rate with their allotment fee for gym membership, for example? And equally similarly, do we still have Optilis next door to Woodford Park?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Yeah, so could we not offer them a similar thing? I mean, it would be like a corporate thing, but where, you know, that if they can sign up X number of people from that organisation, they can have it as at a reduced rate or something like that. Could you not work with sort of local groups, in particular ones what I'm interested in, or even the nursery, the early years, you know, at Woodford Park, the hut.
Woodford Park, yeah.
Yeah, that one, to offer staff. Pardon?
We know the one you mean.
Yeah, that's the one. To offer staff there, again, not a subsidised, but a reduced. So, you know, with they could have the off-peak membership fee. And that was just so convenient for them. So anyone sort of in the vicinity or that already pays into Woodley Town Council facilities, that they could have a reduced fee membership. And to encourage more members. Is that a possibility?
Councillor Nardo, I think that's a good suggestion. I think it might be something that we can consider as part of our marketing strategy. Maybe that goes into the pot there to see if we can drum up a little bit more membership. But we've got some councillors here that also want to comment as well. So Councillor John, if I take you first.
Thank you. Now, there's some good ideas there. I'd just like to say, as an allotment holder, I treat that as my free gym, and I certainly haven't got the energy for any gym exercise after I spent 3 hours digging and heaving stuff around. So I don't think you'll get many takers with the allotment holders, or maybe there's people stronger than me, but it's my free workout, and I'm quite happy to make
Very good comment, Councillor John, but that's good. And Councillor Swan, yes.
I think it's already a fantastic low rate. It's £20 a month to be a member of our gym. I don't know anywhere else that is at that rate. So I don't think subsidising it, because if we're reducing the rate, we are subsidising it for other people. And I think that Optalis employees would be offered a staff discount for Bullmarsh as part of the borough. So the borough does offer that to their employees, and as I hope we offer all the town council employees to encourage them to use that. I think we're doing a great job. I don't think we could drop it more than £20.
I think we could certainly try and promote it.
I think it's just finding different ways to promote it.
Absolutely, and I think that could be part of a wider marketing discussion to see if there are other groups who are amongst us, as Nadia suggested, who might very well be prompted to join. I should imagine most of them will be after Christmas, and then we can lose a few. But thank you, Councillor Nala. Was there any more questions or?
Just very quickly,
Sorry,
quickly,
I was going to go on to say, because I hadn't finished.
1 minute, Nala.
it's just the reduced fee is £20. That is the reduced fee. So I'm suggesting that we give them at the £20 reduced fee.
Thanks for your suggestion. Councillor Swan, there's a lady last.
That is the rate. It's not the reduced rate.
Oh, right, okay, so
It is. I pay £20 a month. So everybody else.
So the standard.
Fred will say I'm down there all the time.
We have a feel good membership, which is kind of what we use to promote. We're planning to, I think there's a part in here actually potentially, but that's what we do, and we're doing a promotional period, £20 a month. Otherwise, it's £24.99 for a woman resident.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but either way,
We do quite regularly do that, don't we?
yeah. So we did it. The main reason we did that was actually coming out of COVID to try and convince people to come back. And obviously, £20 is a nice, reasonable fee. It is the cheapest in the area for a similar kind of provision. There will be cheaper facilities, which you don't get, things like exercise classes, the kind of high street gyms, I suppose. A lot of those, I think, are £15 a month. You can get. I don't know if that's an initial sign up. I probably have to look more into the actual marketing strategy for them. But yeah, basically, you are right. Our membership is very reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we could do a feature with lots of photographs in the Herald, because it's seeing is.
Yeah, one of the things we've always struggled with because of the size of our gym is getting good photos. Actually, we've always struggled with that ever since we built it. There always seems to be a dodgy shadow or something like that. Because of the way that, just because of the way the room's set out. But yeah, that photos is one thing we've had mentioned to us before, actually.
All right.
Getting a state agent, they're always.
Yeah, we need somebody who knows what they're doing, basically.
I'm sure this council can come up with some good support on that. So good, thank you.
Well, David Bragg, chairman of our committee, is a fantastic photographer. So perhaps you should talk to David.
There we go, free of charge. Councillor.
Just, thank you. Just one question. What's the notice period for termination?
1 month. So in effect, people who want to cancel make one more payment, and then we extend the membership until kind of the anniversary of their joining date. So yeah, there's no long-term time on any memberships at all.
So I'm sure you will do, but can you bring these graphs to every meeting?
Well,
I'd be interested to see how things change.
Yeah. I mean, if this is kind of how the committee wants me to present information, I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah, not a problem at all.
It's just good sense of usage in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not like, even if it's at every leisure services, if you do a report, attach them as for information. Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Good. Okay, if nobody else has any more questions, I will swiftly.
I didn't know if Ed wanted to speak about any other part of the.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of
Yes,
our
of course, there's a full page of report here. Please go on.
To be fair, this won't take me very long. So we hosted Flag Fest, which is an American football event on the 8th of October. Really popular, really good. I went along myself for a couple of hours just to watch. They had teams from, I think, as far as Swansea came actually to participate. They raised just over £380, I believe, for Sport in Mind, and they the Renegades actually have the Sport in Mind sponsor their jersey. I say sponsor, I think they wear it for free, but as the sponsor on their jerseys. Really good event. The electrical works concluded at the end of just towards the end of October. That turned out to be a 12-week project in the end, although the last kind of 5-6 weeks were primarily checks, tests, work that didn't really impact the running of the centre. We closed the paddling pool Monday, the 19th of September. We've installed a pool cover to help make it a little less unsightly, but to be honest, it still looks unsightly. It's not great, but there's a fence around it to stop kids falling in and stuff. But we've done what we can this year to make it look as good as we can. 8 members of my team completed a first aid course on the 28th of October. That was part of our kind of a 3-year renewal, really. Always a pretty standard day, but it's good to be kind of refreshed. The external defibrillator, now that the electrical works have finished, has been passed over to the amenities team. We actually have a date for that. It's not in here. I was only given it towards the end of last week. So that is due to be installed on the 6th of December. I think there's a site visit the week before, but that will finally go up. And I've just made a little note there that we still do have the internal one that's operational. We are currently without a defibrillator. Over the Christmas period, will be closed primarily across Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and 2 bank holidays as well as on the 31st and 1st. That's pretty standard now.
So the bank holiday is actually the 2nd of January?
So yeah, the Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, because they fall at the weekend, they get pushed, bank holidays get pushed back to the Monday and Tuesday just after. So we're closed on the 2 days across the weekend, and then what would be the 2 bank holidays. We've chosen to open on the 2nd of January, which is the bank holiday as well, primarily because we think people are going to want to get back into the gym on that day. So that's also quite common for us now. So we are open on that day. A little bit about Woodley Cricket Club. I've talked about Woodley Cricket Club for a while, actually. I've been working with the Berkshire Cricket League a little bit, which I haven't been able to do previously. They actually reached out to us initially to talk about Woodley Cricket Club, and the club itself has been in decline for a long time now. They haven't had a juniors team for a good 5-6 years. And they used to have an A and B team. The last season just finished. It only had an A team. So the number of fixtures, they had a number of bookings with us has been declining dramatically. I think that's why the Cricket League's interfered with the club. And they've actually put a plan in place now to kind of revitalise the club and hopefully bring the number of people participating back up again. They've basically suggested a team for us to host next season alongside Woodley whilst they continue to raise their numbers. So we've actually filled the cricket bookings for next season already, which is obviously quite nice. The league kind of assigned us that club as well, so we didn't have to choose who we go, because we get quite a lot of requests for cricket, and we've always prioritised Woodley. But they picked another Woodley-based club to play at Woodford Park as well. And that club has agreed that should Woodley Cricket Club have a second team for the following season, then the new team will relinquish that space and they'll find another place as well. It seems like a good plan, and they have some very kind of provisional plans in place to bring back the juniors team in the future too, which would be nice. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that because it's something that I haven't talked about for a long time. We hosted another Berkshire Baby and Children's Market. Those are very, very popular. Queues out of the building. I think I've written in there circulating, but I meant circling. Hundreds of people attend those events, and our poor kettle can't really take it anymore, but yeah. And finally, we'll be hosting the Wildlife Trust again for a few days towards the end of this month. They give me a little bit more information actually this time, what they're going to be kind of displaying, and I've just made some notes there about information, nature reserves, wildlife gardening, volunteer opportunities, and also a little bit of a membership, information on membership for children's wildlife club. That always tends to be quite popular when it arrives, and people who often go to the gym tend to stop and talk to the nice lady.
On the Woodley Cricket Club, do we have nets here? Were they part of?
That was part of Bullmersh. So
Bullmersh?
they used to play their matches at Woodford Park and do their training at Bullmersh. And obviously, when One Life took it over, I think Woodley stopped using them. I'm not 100% sure because I wouldn't have had the information available.
But we don't have any nets here at.
No, we can't. No, the structure of our sports will means that we can't actually install cricket nets or basketball nets.
Oh, right, okay. It's good to know, actually. Right, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Heap, yes. What would you like to ask?
Thank you. On the Wildlife Trust, no disrespect to our staff, but if somebody from them are coming and they've got information about wildlife gardening, maybe an opportunity to pick their brains about what we might do as a council.
Sorry, yeah, I'll just reading that. Yeah, I think that's a good call, actually. I'll make a point of doing that. That's a useful resource, I would say.
Thanks.
Any other questions before I go on to the next agenda item? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We shall then now go on to item 6, which is the receiver report on page 9.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, Woodford Park Leisure Centre, as Ed just mentioned, electrical works were all completed, which included the move to LED lighting throughout the whole building, upgrades to the fire alarm system as well, and also some improvements to the exterior lighting, which has been an issue for a while. That's much better if you go up there, and at this time of night now, that's much improved. While that work was happening, the maintenance team got in there while we had periods of closure to replace the ceiling tiles throughout, including the function room, decorate the gents' toilets, and refurb the office room, which was Ed's old office, which is now part of the area leased to Octalis. Woodford Park Garden of Remembrance, there's some projects here which have come up before, now completed. The timber planters, which were in poor condition, and S&R allocated funds to, they've all been replaced now and reconstructed by the maintenance team. They've done a lot of cutting back in the garden as well of some areas that were overgrown, and really kind of got a handle back on the garden there. It kind of slipped away, to be honest, over a few seasons, and that's now back as it should be, and with a better maintenance plan in place. And the memorial plaques, which were discussed at a couple of meetings ago, the ones that were removed have all been replaced and back in their original positions, and refunds made for those that had paid the renewal fee and didn't necessarily need to. Bowles Green, maintenance team commenced the installation of the new irrigation system, which was again another project agreed at Strategy and Resources, so that we can better manage the green. A lot of bulb planting around the park, so there's 2,500 bulbs there that have gone in various areas, and further 400 in the town centre garden, which was part of their original project for bulbs to come out later in the year, so they've now gone in. And flagpole, which was again agreed for an additional flagpole agreed at Strategy and Resources. We're just looking at dates for the actual installation for that. The flag policy is in place, and as soon as that's ready to go in, we'll crack on and get that in place. Remembrance, we had 2 events this year, which was different to previous years. So the council ran an event on the Friday, our usual Armistice Day event, which was really well attended, went very well. We also had a community-led event on Sunday, on Remembrance Sunday, which again, it was a really good event. We had, for those of you that were there, I think you probably agree. So there were cadets, scouts, really good representation, lots of members of the public, and a really good event. It felt like a nice event. It had a community feel for it, and I think it was a good example of the council being able to support a community event. So we did kind of a bit of the donkey work, so to speak, to equipment and a bit of support, but actually it went really well. We had BY involved doing tea and cake in here. It just went really well. So we had some positive feedback about that. And we'll have a debrief with the community committee that organised that to see what we might need to do next year to build on that and continue to support it. So yeah, that went really well. Memorial trees and benches I mentioned briefly earlier, really popular at the moment, and we've got a bit of a system in place for the amenities manager to deal with those requests, because we've had quite a few, particularly with trees, which are more tricky in terms of types of tree, where they might go, and that's working really well, and we're really pleased about that. What I do want to do is to kind of formalise our offer that we can present people with, so that we can make that a bit clearer and provide some options for people in the same way that we do with the seats. That's a very easy one for them to do. The trees is a bit trickier, but we're getting there now that those requests are coming in. Woodley Preschool, the lease for the area, extended area to the back, terms have been agreed. It hasn't actually had the final sign off. Those documents are with them now, and we've got our version, so that is agreed, but not just formally signed and sealed as it stands at the moment. Tree works, we had the tree work survey carried out in the summer, which identified quite a lot of tree works, to be honest. They were prioritised into things that needed to happen within 3 months, and those that could wait longer. All those ones within the 3-month period have been done, so that's a big step forward. And we've got the other work scheduled for the rest of this year, some of those into next year. And we'll make sure that we've got budget allocation for those going into next year. Chapel Hall, again, just to note, while we were close through the half-term period, or didn't have bookings rather, not closed, we managed to get in there and do some of the work we've been looking at for a while. Replacement with LED lighting, tiles, decoration, and the new fire alarm system. And again, those are capital programme items, and some work in the kitchen. Likewise, Coronation Hall, the new fire alarm system in there. And allotments, just to note, we purchased a polytunnel. We're looking at, it's quite a small one. It wasn't an expensive item, but what we're looking to do, the grounds team with, partly due to having a new member in the team, who's given it another dimension really in terms of what we might be able to do. So the team is looking at improving the displays and the offer and the things that we can do. So we're looking at the options for buying plug plants, bringing those on, and having baskets and displays and enhancing the things we do. So using a small unused area, the allotments, we're hoping to work quite well for that. And lastly, on their Bournemouth Park, members might remember the planting plan that came through a couple of meetings ago for the area up there, which included a number of fruit trees to extend the orchard, some successional planting for the larger trees there, and also some hedgerow. And that work is scheduled to happen at the end of the month. So that's again another good project happening.
Great. Good. Does any councillor have a comment? Councillor John?
Yes, two points. On the planting, it talks about 2,500 bulbs. Are they spring and summer bulbs, or are they just spring bulbs? That's the first question.
Another good question that I can't answer, but I'll find out.
Because it seems to me that they are both do make life easy. Once they're in the ground, they do come up, hopefully, time and again. And something like Crocosmia would look good around the lakes, for example, because they look like reeds, but they're nice. You can get all sorts of different colours with them, and I think that would add to the display. And the second one was about the allotments. A polytunnel does need a lot of watering, like any greenhouse, sometimes twice a day if it's hot. And this will be at the allotments rather than at the grounds team's depot. I'm wondering, has that been, I'm sure that's been considered, but is that just going to add to time, etc.?
The intention is for a small, unobtrusive structure to capture rainwater and have a water butt there to do that. Yeah.
Good thinking about that. Thank you.
That's the Swaddle.
Hello, I wondered if Kevin could give us an update on the Garden of Remembrance about the antisocial behaviour issues that we've suffered there.
Yeah, still ongoing. It's been less so since the season changes. It tends to be, you know, the lighter things as you imagine. We did do a couple of things in there in terms of taking, there's a seat, if you're familiar with it, there's a seat towards the back on the left, which tends to be a bit of a magnet for people to sit. But likewise, for people who are there for, you know, genuine purposes, so to speak, that is what it's there for. So it's always a bit of a tricky one. I would say that we haven't had any issues reported more recently, but again, I think that's partly a seasonal thing. So it's been quiet. Part of the work that we wanted to do there in clearing that out so that there's less hidey holes and it's much more open, I think helps because you can just see through there much better, and it just feels safer, I guess. So I'm not sure we've nailed it or changed anything, but I think the seasonal changes.
And I just want to think about the town centre garden and the planting programme, and because I know the public's generally been underwhelmed by but is it going to the plan? Is what's growing what we wanted to have there?
It is, yeah. There's some plants around the edge which need replacing. We've lost a few that were taken away by persons unknown. So we will be replacing where there's gaps. But yes, that is the scheme. So there are bulbs that have gone in there, which will be spring bulbs, and then again through the summer to add more colour. So that's the change. But that is the plan that was agreed. Yes.
And we have spoken about seating there.
Yeah, that is a project which hasn't moved on yet. There's quite a bit to that. We do need to look at it and do some consultation on it about the type of seating and exactly where it would go. So yeah, it's just something that hasn't moved on. Yeah.
So we're consulting everybody.
I haven't done that yet, but we will need to, absolutely.
So when are we aiming to do that by?
I don't know at the moment, but we need to do a bit of a review on projects and capacity and a bit of prioritising. It has been kicking around for a while, which I do appreciate. Yeah, I'll report something back on that.
I think we'd also spoken about having some kind of information board there.
Yep, we're looking at the provision for something which is not necessarily a notice board as such, but something that can combine the town centre stuff with the town council things. We've already got the mushroom with the panels in there, but actually something down towards that that area I think would be helpful, because it is a centre. People do gather around that space, and that's kind of where you might be looking for information. So yeah, haven't done that, but that might be something that I need to come back to SNR and ask for some money for.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Kevin. Anything else? Any other questions before we move on to the next item? Excellent. Okay, and I will move on to item 7, which is our subcommittee and working party membership. Any updates or introductions that you'd like to make before I launch into this?
No.
Fine,
Go
okay.
for it.
Most of you will be aware that following there are a couple of councillors down, unfortunately. Sam Maroney passed away some weeks ago, sadly, and we've had a resignation from one of our councillors, Tom McCann, and so that has meant that in terms of subcommittee proportional representation, that the numbers are slightly adrift. So in terms of this Leisure Services Committee, the partnership, if you like, or the subcommittee that's effective, is our community or our community youth partnership, which, as I understand it, currently stands at 4. Now, I would like to propose that we increase that to 5 to take into consideration the change of that proportional representation, and in effect, that will mean that number of Conservatives on that party, Community Youth Partnership, will remain unchanged, as will the Liberal Democrat numbers, but it will entitle our Labour candidate to chair on that committee, or a Labour person to chair on that committee if they would want to. So we are asked to consider adjusting those numbers and those places. And I would like to propose that we move from 4 to 5 for that committee. Can I have someone second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Carol. Can I have a show of hands, please, in favour? 5 in the room. All against? Any abstaining?
You can't vote if you're online, can you?
No, you can't vote if you're online, but thank you, Nadia. Thank you. All right then, so if that is it, are there any other comments regarding item 7 on the agenda? Okay.
Might be worthwhile getting, if it's available, the Labour appointment on that now, the Labour and Independent Group appointment to that, so that we can carry on.
Have we got anybody here that wants to comment on that from the Labour and Independent Group?
Nada.
Nada, Councillor Nada?
Thank you. Do I have to notify you today?
Only if you know. Oh, it needs to be noted by the parent committee. So if it's not noted today, it would need to go to the next parent committee meeting, which is in January.
Right. Okay. Just just to be clear, the person who sits on the youth partnership committee, do they also sit on the working party?
This is just for the community youth partnership, which falls under leisure services. The youth services working party, they're looking at the tender for the SLA. They sit under strategy and resources, and that will be at next week's meeting. So this is only for the community youth partnership.
Okay then. So can I nominate Councillor Martin Doyle, please? He registered his interest in that.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, I will then move on to item 8, which is our youth services update.
Thank you, Chair. So just to note for this committee, obviously this will be a full agenda item for strategy and resources next week. It was requested the last meeting or the one before that this committee be kept up to date on progress with that as well, hence this agenda item. So just to update members, unfortunately no tender submissions were received following the tendering process. That'll go to SNR for a discussion next week.
Yes, Councillor.
I'd just like to make some comments because basically 26 years ago, we had a youth partnership, if you like. We've always had a youth committee on this council. It was called different things, but they've always been the same thing. And 26 years ago, we got approached by Sam Milligan, who wanted to start up an outreach program. At that time, we also had 2 static youth centres, one at Bullmarsh and one on the airfield. And we had a lot of problems with youngsters who didn't want to go to youth clubs, who wanted to be outside and do what they wanted to do. Anyway, Sam came with this idea that he would actually converted an old transit van into a mobile youth provision. And we took it on. And quite frankly, he went from strength to strength on this and has always served Woodley brilliantly. He got Queen's Award, he got all sorts of awards from different various places. And Woodley was seen as the actual leader in that sort of provision for youth. And Woking Borough were very jealous of it one time and tried to actually copy what we were doing. They took all sorts of committees and tried to change theirs, but they never quite achieved what we did in Woodley. And I was really proud of this. I think it was a fantastic thing that we did. I'm really disappointed that this has happened, that we've got no youth workers at all now in Woodley. The last 3 years, Jack has been doing this for nothing, but we now have absolutely nothing. And a lot of this was because the people who were making decisions and things didn't ever look into what they actually were doing. They didn't go to Rehoboth, they didn't go to see all the actual services that Jack were giving to the youth. And I'm really disappointed that Jack didn't put a tender in now. So now we're left with nothing in Woodley, aren't we? Yeah. Really disappointed for this time.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's a terrible shame, actually.
It is.
Councillor Swan.
So Kevin, what's the next steps?
There will be as I said, a fuller report going to Strategy Resources, who own that project, to consider what to do next.
Could I ask that can we send a letter to Jack to say we appreciate all the years that they've actually put in for youth work? Is that right or not right?
I think once the Strategy Resources Committee have concluded their process, I think that would be a really good proposal that we make to them, or suggestion that makes sense to do that on this council. Good. Yeah, Councillor Nala.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rehoboth Centre has nothing to do with Woodley, and anyone who uses the children of Woodley couldn't use that centre for free, right? So I don't know what that has to do with.
They can use it, Nadia. Yeah, the Rehoboth Centre was available to
free.
The youth of Woodley for free. Yes.
Okay, so how long has that been in place? Because when I asked at the council meeting,
for years and years.
Okay, so firstly, when I asked at the council meeting, I was told that the Rehoboth Centre wasn't at all related to Woodley, and there was no contract or nothing in place at all for Woodley children to use it, and that it wasn't free for Woodley children to use it. I believe it was Councillor Baker who said that. So this is completely news to me. So anyone from Woodley could use the Rehoboth Centre for free?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Nadia, I think it's the established knowledge of this committee that has always been the case. So I don't understand how you heard that, but it's
Yeah.
certainly not one of the councillors on this committee.
Yeah, no, that was genuinely what was said to me. And what's the connection between that aside, whether Woodley children could use the Rehoboth Centre for free? What was the connection between youth outreach and Rehoboth? The two didn't seem linked. I would have been on the council for nearly 4 years, and
Yeah, they were. The service was definitely linked, and referrals from the mobile youth work they used to take in place in Woodley by Jack often got referred to Rehoboth to support the outreach efforts that were going on in this community. And again, that point has been made at this committee and at other committees on a number of occasions. So again, I can't understand why that would be a confusion on any councillor's part here. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak, but my name's been mentioned. I did not say anything that's been accused of me at all. In fact, contrary, I urged councillors time and time again, both within committee and outside of committee, to go up and see the good work that Rehoboth actually said, and it never happened. So I just want to make sure on record that I did not say what I did.
Members of this committee received numerous invites to attend that facility, and indeed were invited. So again, it's if councillors didn't choose to go, then obviously they missed the opportunity. Councillor Heap.
Thank you. I just wondered if we know, of course, obviously we've got this very good relationship with Jack as to why they didn't bid. Is it the case that they've no longer got the people and the resources to do this work? It's after all this time. I just wondered if we got any idea of why. And now we're in this position, maybe we could consider the suggestion made by Martin Doyle, which I don't think has ever been costed, of a cafe at Woodford Park and something for kids there. I mean, we've been looking at this for a long time. That suggestion was made, a long time ago, and we don't seem to have looked into that. So it might be an idea if we've got.
Alex, I think it was looked into, but unfortunately, it was discounted as not being effective in this community.
Well, we've had no
of the youth strategy in the end. So that's
sorry,
why it wasn't considered.
Sorry, we've had no costings for that at all. I mean, you can't reject something if you haven't looked. I mean, presumably in the daytime it would be a cafe earning revenue, and as far as I'm aware, I'm not aware that any officer time has been spent, making any kind of calculation.
I don't think it was a matter of cost. I think it was a matter of effectiveness, and it wouldn't be seen as being effective in our youth and community programme in Woodley.
Well, it's never really been discussed. It's certainly, it's never been discussed at this committee, in any kind of detail. I just think
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's been discussed at Leisure Services, Alex, and I think it's been discussed at SNR as well. So
it hasn't been discussed in Leisure Services in any kind of detail at all, as far as I can tell. For all this time when we've been, working up to this situation, it just hasn't been, just a bit of time to work out what it would cost, revenue projection, just to see if it's a go. And no.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments, Alex. It's much appreciated. Councillor Baker.
I'd just say the consultant that was employed produced a probably 40 or 50 page document, which included costing for something like that. And that was discussed extensively by the Community Youth Partnership. Martin Doyle was the key member of that work. I sat in on as well.
Yeah.
I can't say whether that came back to here, but it's all there. If you dig into that consultant's report,
It was
you will
discussed.
find that it talks about how much they pay
Yes.
for a youth worker, etc. It's all in there, Alex. So I'm sure if you haven't got a copy of it, I'm sure Kevin or Matthew could send it to you.
Okay. And I'll take one last question from our councillor Nada.
Thank you. Yeah, one point, it wasn't an accusation, Councillor Baker, that of what you said. You did say it was in that meeting when you said, I urge you to go to the Rehoboth Centre. And it was in that meeting that I asked if that was subsidised by Woodley Town Council, and I was told no. And I asked if our youth could use that service for free, and I was told no. It was in that meeting, and you have urged people to go and see it, and you have said about the good work they do. That's not in denial at all. And the second point is that the cafe costings, I really haven't seen any kind of detailed plan or costings in the consultation that Councillor Baker just referred to. In the consultation, it wasn't a consultation document, sorry, it's the document that was produced by the external consultant that was commissioned to look into it. It was included in there about having a space for young people, but I don't recall there being specific costings of running the cafe, how much that would cost, maintenance, staffing in that cafe. So if you do have that, to the Deputy Town Clerk, if you do have those costings, I'd be really interested to see them. It's never been raised in any of the meetings I've attended. Thank you.
I can provide a copy of the youth strategy document.
We'll provide you a copy of the youth strategy document and the consultant report. Okay. Right then, so let's not waste any more time on this excellent discussion. I will go on to the. I'm still on item 9 at the moment.
Yes.
I am. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Before we go on from item 9, I just want to
item 9.
item 2 or the second item of item 9, which is members are asked to consider amending the terms of reference for delegated authority to the working party to agree and make changes to the tenancy agreement. I have to say that I disagree with that, and actually it contradicts the previous comment on there, which is that it is agreed with the additional requirement to review the current allotment tenancy agreement and to propose changes to the Lever Services Committee, this committee. So my recollection was that the working party would recommend changes to this committee, but would not be empowered to actually make changes to the agreement without our approval. And indeed, no other subcommittee or working party would have that power to do so, and shouldn't do really, because anything that is legal should come back to the main parent committee, or indeed be referred to SNR or to main full council before it is approved. So bearing in mind that the current agreement was only just over a year ago, I think it was now.
It was, yeah.
Then it's still fit for purpose, and we should continue to do it. But I don't see any reason why the working party can't continue to make recommendations, but it should come back to the main committee to make or agree them. So on that basis, I would like to propose that we do not amend the current document on for terms of reference. Do we need to vote on that?
Yes.
Can I have a show of hands, please?
You want a seconder for the.
Can I have a second for that, please? Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a show of hands, please, in support of that? All of those in opposition? All of those abstaining? Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. All right, I will then move on to item 10, which is benches and seating around Woodley. Alex, you brought that to our attention at the last meeting or the meeting before, but we have a report on page 11. You may start with you, Kevin, first, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to say a few words there. Yeah, Councillor Heap has provided and done a good bit of work on identifying some locations for additional seating around Woodley based on identifying gaps and walking routes where it would be reasonable and perhaps expected for there to be seating. We haven't really done that in the past, we focused very much on seating provision within, Woodford Park and some of the open spaces, but less so broader than that, to be honest. We do have seats dotted around in a number of areas, so I think this is a really helpful bit of work. The proposal there is for members to consider whether to place additional seating. What I was perhaps going to suggest is that in looking at that, between the information that Councillor Heaps provided and perhaps doing some site visits with the amenities manager to look at some suitability and kind of agree those locations, that could come back to this committee with a view to agreeing locations and then getting some funding from SNR either through the capital programme or in another way to buy some seats and get them in.
Sounds like a great idea. Yes, Councillor.
There's one missing. I think I've had a lot of people complain. Woodlands Avenue, it's a very long straight road and there isn't a single bench along there. And you often find people actually they've got these trolleys and they sit on the trolleys because they can't. I just wondered if it's possible that they could get a seat put along there somewhere. And Beechwood Avenue's got 2 seats. Woodlands haven't got any. So
I'm sure that'll be picked up if I think Councillor York thinks there might be 1, but I think it'll be picked
I
up.
was thinking of Beechwood when I.
Were you? Oh, right, it's good.
yeah,
Woodlands Avenue, a very long road, isn't it? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Councillor Heath, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, that was what I had in mind, is not necessarily for this meeting to actually decide where seats would go, but to generate a kind of process, a logical process, whereby we can consider where we might put them. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much they cost, and that might be worth finding out.
Yes.
But we do have a budget in this committee to do this. So if we decide there is a need for one or more, then we would have to look at spending some money. There's also a possibility of bequests from people who want to remember people by putting up a seat, but also I think we should consider if local businesses might want to sponsor one. A lot of big businesses nowadays have kind of objectives to get involved with their local community. So maybe, we could get the local company in Woodley to sponsor a seat. But yes, the idea is, well, the reason I did it was because obviously no one organisation provides all the seats in Woodley. So there was a map. So now there is a map. It's now out of date because I believe you put some in Woodford Park, but it's pretty up to date. So, and also I marked in red, I tried to identify where elderly people might be living with bungalows and old people's homes, things like that. So, and maybe we could ask the views of organisations that represent the elderly before we make a decision. But yeah, I think, if we put a process in place where we can consider locations, that will be, I'll be very pleased with that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, is this fantastic spreadsheet, and thank you so much, Alex, you've worked really hard on it. Is this every bench, or is it the town council benches? Is it a mix of borough and town council benches?
Should I answer that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is everything you can sit on in public places. There's one private one in the smoking area which I have left off, but it'll be a seat anywhere you can sit down. So that will include bus stops. It will include borough council parks. It will be Woodley Town Council parks and various locations where there are seats. I think there's even one pub where you can sit down. And there's a couple there which are actually trees, which are obviously been fallen down and actually placed so people could sit on. So it's literally anywhere where somebody can plant themselves down, have a rest, and then carry on and finish the journey.
Okay, because we've got benches at the Shackleton Way open green space, which you could add to your map.
Certainly, if there are any missing, And I have a friend who found one or two for me with great glee, actually. Yeah, if they're already missing, you can let me know, and I will certainly update the map and send it through. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Alex. Councillor Baker.
Is it possible, Kevin, to mark up which of these are actually Woodley Town Council?
Yep.
It might be helpful. And secondly, can I log in one of my own, which is we need a bus stop, bench and roof and what have you. It's on Church Road, opposite Brandon Avenue. The space is already there, the base is already there, ready to have one. And I've been chasing for years the borough to put one on there unsuccessfully. So I'm going to try my other route, which is ask the town council.
So that's an existing bus stop, just doesn't have
Existing
a shelter.
Yeah, literally opposite Brandon Avenue. It's just before Ashenbury Park, before you go around the bend. Either turn left up to Denmark or turn around the bend to Tippings.
It seems that we've got quite a bit of work to do in terms of making sure we've got a comprehensive list, looking at the condition of them, and then getting feedback to suggest from local groups as to where we might put benches. So there's a little bit of work to do there, which I suggest could be done concurrently with you doing your count and condition survey, as it were. But we've also got to select a bench, I suggest.
We do have.
Do we have a bench
yeah,
that we use? Do we?
We do have a standard seat which we use for a couple of reasons. Partly they're built very solidly indeed, and there are reasonable costs. They're about £600 by the time you factored in the delivery. We can get that down a little bit if we were ordering several at a time, because you only pay the one delivery charge. But those seats we've been using the same type, which we've got through the park and elsewhere.
So we've already got
12 years now.
All right, so we've already got a good trusty model that we would want to use.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's as well.
And so we noted when we looked at the income that Woodford Park, it's a fantastic income, additional benches. So when somebody comes to the town council and says they'd like to have a memorial bench, are they only ever put in Woodford Park, or?
Mostly that's because that's where people have asked for them to be. So we've not sort of overtly offered it in other places, but we do talk to people about that. But lots of people want them in Woodford Park just because it's so busy and so well used. That said, there's no reason why they couldn't be elsewhere or anywhere in Woodley, and the town council is able to do that.
So if we had a list of places we thought our residents would benefit from having a bench, and then somebody came and said they want a memorial bench, you could always then try and marry the two things merrily together.
Just
I'm just thinking, we could end up with, Woodford Park being full of benches.
Well, that's my only concern, actually. And of course, like the plaques, they remain there for 75 years. We can't do anything with them. So we need to be practical at the same time. So, yes, I think we should probably think about a number and then try not to exceed that.
Yeah, the seats are slightly different. We run that on the basis of a donation, which enables somebody to have a plaque mounted on a seat. So they don't own the seat. The town council retains ownership of the seat and maintains it. We are quite careful about where they go and how many there are. We have had a lot more recently. What we have done is managed to replace all our old ones with newer ones. So they're not all new locations, but we have had a number of newer ones. But yeah, I think moving further afield now is a good time to start.
So if I say you'll come up with a programme and work with Alex and local folks to,
Yeah, we can get
started
a message out and start talking to people about where they would suggest, because people who need them are the people that know where they should be.
They should be, yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Jewell.
Thank you. Could we minute our thanks to Alex, because I think he's put in a lot of work in finding these benches.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, that's record our thanks to
marking them down. So that was one thing. Secondly, I presume we can't just plonk benches anywhere. A matter of ownership, land ownership, will be got to consider. So just to throw that into the mix. And then thirdly, we could put this, that's really item 14, but could put it on the website, asking people for ideas where they would like to see a bench, where the point at which they get puffed when they get from A to B, and we can look at that. Woodlands Avenue, yes, I agree, it's a long road, no seats, but there's not really any room for seats, I don't think.
I think once we've got a reasonably comprehensive list of what we've got, where it is, we can certainly use the website to provide extra feedback as well. That's the reason for that. You know, we can have a survey, put it open for 2 or 3 months or something like that to get some feedback. Good. Okay. Right then, I will move on then in that case to item 11, which is the London Bridge disaster plaque. And Kevin, I'll leave this on you.
Thank you. So yes, just to note, there is a ceremony tomorrow, in fact, which members will have received notification of, and the mayor is attending that ceremony. That's a tree planting, but also a plaque specifically from the town council to mark that particular incident, and that was a question that came up a couple of meetings ago about what was happening with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take item 12 on the agenda, which is an update on the Modern Mead open space.
Yeah, I don't have much of an update. In fact, I don't have an update at all on that. I have been trying to get hold of Sam, who's been very busy, just to see where their project in terms of the parkour project is. So when I've had a chance to do that, I'll get that back to
roll over to the next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. In that case, then I will move on to the next agenda item, which is number 13, future agenda items. Alex, councillor, please.
Yes, it's just on Loddon Mead. I go down.
Right, okay.
I go down there once a week to pick litter, and there isn't much litter. But a point to be made is that what does appear are the cats. Sometimes they leave the cans they use for the spray paint, and they chuck them in the wildlife, the park, which is obviously not acceptable. I basically kick them back. But on a wider note, I have spoken to a couple of the people that actually that do the murals there, and interestingly, the rule is they can only cover up somebody else's mural if what they do is better. That's an interesting rule, but there aren't any reusable canisters available commercially, and I think that the businesses that produce these really have to start getting on and providing that, because it's a massive every time, obviously they use this spray paint, and then they got an empty canister that can't be used again. So it's it's a lot of refuse that goes into landfill. I mean, I don't know how they probably won't listen to us or any parish council, but there should be some pressure put on the businesses that produce this spray paint to actually look at ways of having reusable canisters. Yeah, that's certainly. I spoke to the people, and I've been down there. I did actually send in some photos if anybody's interested. And some of the stuff that's up there, I consider it better than some of the things I've seen in the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition. So, literally, and I got the photos to prove it.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much for that. I'm wondering, actually, do we provide any bins and recycling bins down there for anything like this? I don't suppose we do.
No.
But is it something, along with a bench down there, maybe we provide something whereby we have a regular bin and we have something for spray can recycling, because if that's what's required down there, rather than throwing it into the river or throwing it into the hedge or something like that, we ought to provide at least something, because otherwise they will just continue to do that. So I'm wondering.
Chair, but perhaps I could suggest that's something I might be able to pick up with Wokingham Borough Council, who own the the bulk of the land there. We've got the small grassed area.
So we
to the
can't,
side.
we can't provide that service ourselves and.
Then there would be costs to that, of
Yeah.
course, in terms of
All right, well, why don't we
providing
have-
something specific.
Why don't we talk to Woking Borough Council, Alex, to see if we can't provide some sort of like bin, recycling bin for all of this, to at least to provide those folks with the opportunity to dispose of it properly. And, you know, and then take it up from there. Maybe you could update us on the progress over the next few meetings.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Okay, I'll take item 4, the last item on our agenda, which is future publicity and website. I have one suggestion, which is well received. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to propose? Okay then, in that case, I will bring this meeting to a close. Thank you all for attending on a dark and stormy night. Thank you.
Thank you very much.